That right there is obviously less than ideal. So what happened? How did I wreck the Mini 2, and what am I doing now about it? Let me give you a little bit of a backstory on how I ended up in a position where I lost my drone. My father is heavily involved with Aiken County Parks and Rec, and his baby, his pet project, is Langley Pond there in Aiken County. For years, Langley Pond hosted a really big rowing event, and that is actually the location of how my wife and I started to get closer, started to date, and now I'm a permanent voluntold. But about 8 years ago, they decided to close Langley Pond to this regatta because people were coming close to running up the bank. They were coming close to hitting submerged logs. The water level was going down, and they really wanted to make it as safe as possible for the rowers. So they moved the regatta from Langley Pond over to Lake Olmsted at Augusta. And it was only supposed to be a couple of years hiatus. They were going to fix some things. They were going to take some logs out. They were going to take the stumps out. They were going to make it to where they could really host a quality regatta. But as is like to happen, other things came up. They had to replace the dam. They had to drop the water level even further to get rid of some more of the logs and the stumps and things like that. And it just took longer and longer and longer. Oh yeah, and then COVID happened. We had the 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic, and now we are finally back to rowing on Langley Pond. And the reason that I needed to get out there with the drone is because they used to go from the far end of Langley Pond, where Horse Creek enters the pond, all the way down to the dam, and that would be the finish line. Well, they decided to invert it. They figured this makes more sense. It's safer. It gives us more room to race. So now they start at the far end near the dam, and they race back up. And right now it's just 1,000 meters. They're hoping to finish cleaning some more things out to get a full 2,000 meter course. And that'll be really exciting because there's a really nice finish tower at the 2,000 meter mark. But because they haven't actually rowed on Langley Pond in almost 8 years, there's really not a whole lot of people except for the older crowd who have rowed there. So they wanted to show people where to park because the parking situation changed. They wanted to show people where they would start because the start changed. They wanted to show people how to finish because the finish changed. And you may be saying to yourself, well, just go onto Google Earth and draw lines and take pictures and do it that way. But Google Earth is still about 5 years old there at Langley Pond. You can't see the playground, which is in the way for the boats to have to walk down to the dock. You don't see the big field where they're parking the trailers. And so it just made more sense for me to put the drone up about 250 feet in the air and get some quality and custom footage to show people this is how we want you to park. This is how we want you to enter the park. This is how we want you to exit. This is where you're going to take your boats. This is where you're going to go onto the water, off the water. This is where you're going to practice. This is where you're going to start, finish, the whole 9 yards. So the Sunday before the regatta, I went out to the park with my father-in-law, my wife, and everything was going smoothly. I was able to get great footage of the parking situation. I was even able to recreate how the trucks and trailers needed to go from an FPV standpoint with the Mini 2. I was able to show the route that they would take to get to the water. And so once we did that, rather than do start to finish, we were like, well, let's go down to the finish. And I got some great footage of the finish line, showing people this is the line. These are some of the markers you may want to look at on land to be able to tell you, okay, we're in the last 250, we're in the last 100, we're in the last 5 strokes. So then we went up to the start, and I was able to get some footage of the actual course, what it would look like going down the course, what the start looks like, what the warm-up area looks like. And it was the last shot of the day. There was only one shot to get, and it's one of the most boring shots, honestly. And so this last shot, I was doing a slow orbit around the start area. I was showing what the pylons look like, how much space you have to get 8s and quads and 4s in between into lanes 1 through 6. I was showing what the start tower looks like there at the front. And I was just doing this slow orbit, and I had plenty of footage, and I should have just stopped, but I was going back and forth, looking at the drone, making sure I knew where it was, looking down at the footage. And for whatever reason, I kept looking down at the footage and said, I can get a couple more seconds. Add some padding just in case. And the next thing you see is this. So that's where it all went wrong. I ran into some pine trees. I thought I was higher. I thought I had more room. And again, I took my eyes off the drone. I did what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to keep your eyes on the drone, be able to see it. And while I knew where it was and even though I was within visual line of sight, I took my eyes off of it and it crashed. I went and got my father-in-law and my wife, because I also thought to myself, what if this thing got stuck up in the tree? Because I lost connection with it as it started tumbling, so I didn't see the end of the tumble. I didn't see that it made it to the ground. I thought it might be stuck in a pine tree. And for all the flack that DJI tends to catch, whether it be for geofencing, whether it be because they're a Chinese company, whether it be because people just don't know how to use their drones properly, I will say that the Find My Drone feature worked phenomenally. Phenomenally worked great. Because everything was working smoothly, I knew where I lost the drone and it showed up on the map. And then I was able to have the dot where it showed me, especially once it repaired, it showed me where I was. And then it's got this cool feature where you can have it start beeping. And honestly, I didn't have to use the beeping. I started doing it as soon as I entered the wooded area, and there it was, right on the ground at the base of a pine tree. And of course, as soon as I picked it up, I knew that this thing was toast. If you look there, you can see that this motor, the left front motor, is detached mostly, so that would have had to be a whole new arm. 2 propellers broke off. That's easy to fix. It's just a little screw, put a little Loctite on, would have been fine. But then the kill shot is obviously the fact that the gimbal is completely detached. So once we retrieved the drone and I realized that this thing is probably never going to fly again, I probably could have ridden back with my father-in-law and my wife in the golf cart back to the vehicles. But I ultimately decided I needed to walk off some frustration. But on that short walk, it wasn't that far, I actually started thinking, because I needed to come up with a plan. I needed to have a drone in roughly 6 days that I could fly so that I could still get footage of the regatta. I had committed to getting footage for the referees because they were trying a new tactic. I had committed to just getting great footage of the regatta in general. And I didn't want to disappoint anybody just because I had been stupid and lost my drone. So I started thinking to myself, what are my options? Well, number 1 option is upgrade. Number 2 option would be to stay the same. Number 3 option would be to borrow somebody's drone. In the upgrade column, I was looking at the Air 2S Fly More combo. It's roughly $1,100. The Mini 3 Pro just launched for the drone, new smart controller, and 1 battery. It's about $910. Fly More combo, you're looking at closer to $1,000, if not a little bit more. Obviously, the Mavic 3 Pro is what I would love, but at almost $3,000, just it's out of the question. I looked at some Mavic 2 Pros and Mavic Pro Originals on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. I found one Mavic 2 Pro for $500. I don't know what all would have come with it, but by the time I reached out to the seller, they said they had already sold it, so that was off the table. So then option number 2 was stay the same, get another Mini 2, and just fly that. Obviously, like I said, option number 3 was borrow a drone. I only really know one person in the area, and I think Aaron took that drone with him to Alaska. I don't remember when he left, so I didn't think that it was an option. So I was really left with buy a new drone. And this is the one that I ended up going with. That's right, I stuck with good old reliable Mini 2. This is actually a refurb from Amazon. It ran me $450. But at the end of the day, it came down to 3 reasons why I stuck with a Mini 2. Number 1, price. I already said it. $450 for a refurb. It came with another battery and it came with a controller. You can't beat that price. It was just too good to pass up. Reason number 2 is I'm familiar with the Mini 2 setup. And while I have no doubt that if I were to have gotten the 2S, whether I've gotten a Mini 3 Pro or one of the Pros, that I would have been able to pick it up really quickly. Picking this up for about $450 from Amazon, it was to me by Thursday. I already knew how to use it. It just made too much sense not to stick with this. And reason number 3 that I stuck with the Mini 2 is because I stand by my video from about a year ago where I said that the Mini 2 is the best entry-level cinematic drone on the market. And I still think that. Yes, there is the Mini and it's down to like $200, $300. There's the Mini SC, which is a step above but a step below. Then there's the Mini 2. The Mini 3 did just come out, I get it. And then there's the Air 2S, the Air 2, and all these other drones. But for the price and what you get, and a Fly More combo of the Mini 2 is still below $600, you just can't beat that. 4K at 30 frames per second, get all sorts of features. Obviously, obstacle avoidance may have done a little bit of good in this situation, but we'll not get hung up on that. But I just think that if you're trying to get into drone photography, drone videography, I still think the 2 is the way to go, and then see that if you enjoy it, if you want to, you can then bump up to the 3, the Air 2S, the 2 Pro, the 3 Pro. But then I kind of already hinted at it, and a fourth little reason is that I now have 4 batteries because it did come with an extra battery. I also have now a second controller because it came with a brand new or refurb controller. And like I said, I was able to get the drone by Thursday. The regatta wasn't until Saturday, so I had all day Friday to do firmware updates. I was able to get the drone up in the air just to make sure that everything was working the way that it is supposed to be advertised. I was able to get everything charged. And then I had a beautiful, beautiful Saturday and Sunday, got some awesome footage. It was just a lot of fun to do, as they say, get back up in the saddle. So that is the story about how I lost my first drone in a seemingly embarrassing fashion. But I want to hear from you. If you have flown drones and if you have had an accident, what caused you to lose that first drone? Was it human error? Was something wrong where it flew off that you couldn't control? What happened in that instance? If you're new to droning, or if you have not flown a drone yet but you want to, what's holding you back? Is it the price? Is it the learning curve? What is keeping you from trying out this awesome new tool for getting beautiful footage? Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. If you don't already, please hit subscribe and maybe ring that bell so that you know when I drop some more videos, and I will catch you in another video down the road.